If you have a true strange story of the unexplained you'd like to hear read on the podcast, email it to madamestrangeways@gmail.com or go to madamestrangeways.com or just check the show notes for a link. I can't wait to read it. Welcome to Madame Strangeways, where I, Madame Strangeways, am your guide beyond the veil, past the twilight zone, and smack dab in the middle of the strange and unusual. Today, I have one true strange story for you. And as always, solicited or not, usually not, I share my thoughts and observations after each spooky tale. But first, a huge thank you to my Patreon supporter, TJ Hodder. If you want to hear your name at the beginning of every episode just like TJ, you can jump onto patreon.com/madamestrangeways or check the show notes to join. Not only will you hear your name read, but also you'll get bonus content and an exclusive free sticker. Yes, free. I said it. Free. Yes, you are technically paying for a... Yeah, okay, I understand. But it's exclusive, did I mention that? Also, it's waterproof, so you can put it on your water bottle. Everybody loves putting stickers on water bottles. Anyway, on to these strange stories here on Madame Strangeways. The Haunted Apartment by Ted. In 2008, we moved to a new apartment. Orange County is home to the largest concentration of Vietnamese Americans, with a few generations being here since before the 70s. That part is important. We were excited to move to a new, more spacious 2-story apartment. I was going off to college, but still stayed at home to save on money. Nothing seemed out of place, although I occasionally had sleep paralysis. I understood the physiological reason behind these episodes, the theta brainwaves invading other waves during REM. So knowing how it works gave me peace. The visual and auditory hallucinations were explained away, although deep down, I never fully got reassured. The things I saw included the dark figure at the end of my bed, the creaking of the mattress as I felt the indentation of someone sitting on it, the hearing of footsteps walking up the stairs, and a deep voice saying, "You know I'm going to come get you, right?" I even learned to willfully wake myself up from sleep paralysis, so whenever it got a little too scary, I would try to shake my head and enter reality. Everything seemed manageable until one night. I was studying well into the early morning, around 3 a.m., in the living room. I heard footsteps coming down the stairs from the upstairs bedroom. That was not too peculiar. People in my family would come down for a glass of water or tell me to turn down the volume of the TV. This time, it was my teenage sister. She had a dazed look on her face, walking sort of aimlessly through the living room into the kitchen. It was a weird, slow walk, as if she wasn't familiar with the layout of the kitchen. I was intrigued, so I watched her closely. She walked to the kitchen window, opened an imaginary door in front of it, looked up and down, closed it, turned around, and walked back upstairs. I figured she was sleepwalking and chuckled to myself that it was weird, and then went back to studying. A few weeks later, I found out incidentally from the landlord that the tenant before last had a brown fridge next to the kitchen window. I asked to look at the picture he took before they moved out, and the fridge was exactly where she was pretending to open a door while sleepwalking. I was flabbergasted. However, I tried to explain it away as a crazy coincidence and brushed it off. However, that was not the end for this apartment. Another late night studying. I was laying back on the sofa with my laptop on my chest. After an hour in that position, my back was hurting a bit, so I sat up to put my laptop on the coffee table. Just before I could put it down, the table slid away from me. It was a good foot of movement. I froze, trying to process what just happened. In California, earthquakes aren't uncommon, so I explained it away as that, even though I knew no earthquake powerful enough to move a heavy coffee table would only affect said table. After brushing it off, I went back to studying. We welcomed a new addition to our house a year later. My baby sister was born, and she was the joy of our lives. I loved taking care and spending time with her. When she was 2, I was taking care of her one morning. We were alone in the apartment. After giving her a bath and clothing her, I was taking her downstairs to get something to eat. I was down a couple steps of stairs, and she was about to follow me when she turned back to look at the bedroom hallway. She said, "Look, there's a lady there." I grabbed her and booked it downstairs immediately. I played it off as her imagination and once again didn't want to acknowledge it. Shortly thereafter, we got a roommate. He was the son of a family friend, and we gave him a place to stay temporarily. He and I stayed in the same room. Now, I should preface this with the room we were staying in had things going bump in the night, but I was in denial about it as before. The feeling of being watched, feeling the bottom of my mattress depress as if someone was sitting on it, the door opening on its own, etc. The same thing was happening to both of us when he moved in, especially the door. It would open on its own at around 4 a.m. every night. I asked everyone at home to see if they had opened the door to check on us, and no one said that they did. I tried to rule out any physical explanation. The window was closed, so it wasn't the outside air creating a vacuum pulling the door open. We changed the locks, then the door, then changed the hole in the door frame where the locking mechanism goes in. The activity continued. We were up late one night, each on our bed on our laptop. We heard the door handle turning and looked up to see who's checking in on us. The door creaked open, and the door handle turned back to its original position. We looked at each other, bewildered. I got up, closed the door, locked it, and we both just went to sleep without saying a word to each other. I was then finally convinced that there was no explanation for what was happening. My roommate was also an amateur rapper in Vietnamese and would write and record his own songs. One afternoon, I came back from my class and saw him lying in his bed with his headphones on, staring intently at his laptop. His face was flushed and he looked shocked. He told me to put on the headphones and said, "Listen to this." I saw the audiogram on his playback program and all of the spikes of his voice. A few flat seconds before he started singing, however, I saw one single spike. He played it. The voice of an old man, slightly higher pitch, saying, Zong Len, which means keep going in Vietnamese. He was visibly scared. That was the first EVP we recorded in that room. I put a recorder in that room later and went to school. There was no one at home during the day. Everyone either went to work or school. I got home early that day and listened to the playback while studying. In the middle of doing differential equations, I heard an older lady laughing. I would guess from her voice that she was middle-aged. I rationalized it as background noise from the apartment complex. Maybe one of the neighbors was laughing really loudly and the voice traveled into my room. After asking all of the neighbors around me, it was confirmed that no one was home during that 6-hour time frame. Still, I reasoned that it must have been from another apartment nearby. One night, I woke up in the middle of sleep and knew I was having sleep paralysis. I was on my side, looking at my roommate. I couldn't fully see his face because there was a pair of pale white legs in front of it. It was clearly a pair of legs belonging to a girl or woman. She was wearing one of those black booty shorts that had Victoria's Secret on it. She wasn't my sister because her legs and thighs are not as thin. The pair of legs turned around and started to bend down. I reacted by closing my eyes. I knew she was looking at me. I pretended to still be asleep. I willed myself to move and shake my head. If I could shake my head, I usually would wake up. And I did, and saw my roommate looking at me. I could tell that he saw her too because with his scared expression, he turned towards the wall and went back to sleep. Eventually, he found a place of his own and moved out. I moved to the other bedroom with my little brother, who was closer to my age, and left my 2 little sisters to stay in my old room. My little brother refused to believe in the supernatural, and neither did my parents. They were devout Roman Catholic, and they said no ghosts or demons could live in a house of God. There were crosses and pictures of Jesus and the Virgin Mary all through the apartment. There was even a heavy wooden cross on the wall right above where I slept. One night, I was sleeping soundly. Suddenly, I heard someone yell in my left ear. I jolted awake. Tan is my Vietnamese name. I put my legs and hands up in full guard position. Years of wrestling and judo gave me that reflex. As I did so, the heavy wooden cross fell and landed on my hands. The weight of it pushed my hands to my face, and it hurt a little. I was feeling a plethora of emotions: fear, confusion, a little bit of adrenaline. I looked at my little brother, still sleeping soundly. Surely he didn't hear someone yelling, otherwise he would have been awake. I looked at the cross, then looked up at the wall where it used to be. The nail where it was hung on was still there. I put the cross on the table and pulled the cover over my head, trying not to think about what happened. In 2009, the whole family went back to Vietnam for a visit. We visited relatives and had a fun vacation. I went to the temple where my grandpa's ashes were kept. In this small room, filled with incense and candles, was a wall full of boxes of ash with names and pictures on each of the descendants. It was a solemn atmosphere, and even though I was not Buddhist, I put my hands together and listened as everyone else prayed. All of a sudden, I felt numb. My whole body was not responding to my commands. I was unable to move. It was as if I was having sleep paralysis, except I was awake. It felt like I was trapped in my own mind and my body belonged to someone else. My eyes became blurry. I was standing in the front row and there was a couple of rows of people behind me. With my blurry vision, I saw my grandpa in the same outfit he was in, except his light blue buttoned shirt was now white, standing at the spot where his ashes were. I felt very emotional. Perhaps it was this shock that gave me control back of my body, and I leaned over to tell my uncle, "I see Grandpa." He just nodded. It was more natural to accept the paranormal in Buddhism. I felt glad to have experienced it, to maybe see my grandpa one last time. After that, we stayed in Vietnam for a few more days. One of those days, we were at a party at my grandma's house. It was customary to have a shrine in a house honoring the ancestors of a family. On the altar were pictures of my great-grandparents and other elders that passed away. The altar was on the 4th floor, and we were eating and drinking on the ground floor. I got drunk and asked to go upstairs to lay down. The last thing I remembered was falling asleep with a couple of my uncles and aunt next to me talking. What I was told, however, was something astonishing. Apparently, after 30 minutes or so, I sat up, looked at my uncle and aunt with distant eyes. I stroked my imaginary beard and said, "Is Tam's family visiting? That's good to know. My dad's name is Tam." I continued to say things that I couldn't have known about the family members. My dad, a forever Catholic, went upstairs to the altar to light an incense offering for the ancestors. Shortly after, I fell back to sleep. It's worth noting that my great-grandfather had a long beard, and I bear a resemblance to him. I had to go back to the U.S. earlier because classes were going to start before everyone else would have gotten back. I was staying in the apartment by myself. Tired from the jet lag and the different time zone, I couldn't sleep. I put on an exercise DVD in the living room, did an hour of cardio, then cooled down with an hour of yoga. At the end of the session, there was a minute of meditation. I've done meditation before in my martial art class. We would sit in a circle, cross-legged, breathe through our navel, let go of our own consciousness. At one point, I would even feel weightless, and an overwhelming sense of peace would come over me. I figured if I could do that in a class with 10 others, then there was no reason why I shouldn't be able to do it alone at 3 a.m. I closed my eyes, and the voice from the DVD chanted, "Om." I didn't have the volume up because it was early in the morning, and I didn't want to disturb the neighbors. After the second Om, I started to feel peace and a little bit weightless. In the middle of the third Om, however, I felt a hot breath on my right ear and heard loud whispers. It lasted for maybe half a second, and when I opened my eyes, I saw no one around me. I looked around, still dazed from the meditation. I called my friend and told him I was going to sleep over at his house. I've seen enough scary movies to know exploring what was happening further was a bad idea. Needless to say, I no longer meditate by myself, especially when I don't have the tools to protect myself in a new environment. I still did not tell my parents about any of these incredible experiences because I did not want to challenge them. I was also not the only one that had paranormal experiences in this apartment, however. My little sister, the one sleepwalking to the imaginary fridge, came home one night. She was parking the car and saw my dad washing dishes in the window on the 2nd floor. She came up and asked when his sister came over. He said, "No, It's late. She's probably at home. She told him, I saw you washing dishes by the window, and an older woman with white hair and a bun standing behind you. My dad became defensive and told her to stop watching scary movies and imagining things. My dad's sister and my little sister were also the only ones feeling the presence in the bedroom and the weight of someone sitting at the end of the bed. Eventually, I moved out of my parents' apartment. Apart from scaring me, I didn't feel anything malevolent there. I would come back sometimes to have a sleepover, especially when my mom cooked something I loved and I ate too much and felt sleepy. One night, I went to sleep in the room where the cross fell. Everything was normal, and I felt comfortable. My little sister's closed laptop was in the room, as it was her room after all, and she was away on a school trip. I locked the room because I didn't want any funny business that night, and went to sleep. Suddenly, I was jolted awake because loud music was playing. I turned on the light. The laptop was open, and YouTube was on. Whatever my sister was listening to was playing. It wasn't possible, I told myself. The laptop was closed when I went to sleep. Even if I was sleepwalking, I didn't know her password to log in. My chest was pounding. Whoever it was in the room wanted to play a prank with me, or wanted me to know it was there. Ted, you never disappoint. You've had so many traumatizing experiences, and yet you're just so nonchalant about it. Every single time something scary happens to you, you're just like, you know what? No, it didn't. And also, I'm not going to tell my parents because this will ruin the illusion that they have thinking that this sort of thing can't happen in their home. I love it. Every single time you're like, this really scary thing happened, but I just told myself I was making it up. How many times does something scary have to happen in order for you to go, maybe that actually just happened? But also, I understand wanting to protect your psychological safety any way that you can. You do hear this again and again in these true scary stories that happen to people. Over and over, you hear the person that it happened to saying, either they didn't acknowledge it or their family didn't acknowledge it. They were all experiencing these things separately from one another and just choosing not to talk about it. They didn't want to bring it up. Either they didn't want to give power to this thing that's, presumably lurking in their house and terrorizing them, or, they don't want to scare their family members, or they don't want to be labeled as crazy. There's so many reasons. And then when they get older and presumably are no longer in the home, then they bring it up like, hey, do you remember that terrifying experience that I thought I was the only one who experienced? Oh, actually, everyone else was experiencing this as well at the same time. Crazy how that happens. All right, we're going to go through, I'm going to try to hit everything. See if I can do it. Your sister sleepwalking to the imaginary door where a refrigerator had previously been located when they lived there. That's wild. That right out the gate, you've got sleepwalking sister, the sleepwalking sister in the imaginary fridge. It's like one of the Hardy Boys type novels in your compendium. It's crazy. That's wild. Especially just how there's no way you would know that. There's no way you would know, oh, there used to be a fridge there. She would not pick that up. I don't think. Even subconsciously. All right, then we've got the coffee table sliding away from you out of nowhere. That's really scary. I had something similar happen to me when I was younger, but it was on a heavy table, and I've rationalized it to myself and explained how it moved on its own. But if I think you said that the table moved like a foot away, which I don't know. I don't know how to explain that, and that would scare the shit out of me. And I would be like, nope, no more studying. Obviously, whatever entity is in this house does not want me to study. So there you go. You've got it. No more studying. I would get no studying done. So you're way more dedicated than I was, or I am, or would be. Then you've got your 2-year-old sister. Oh, kids, we've talked about this. Everybody knows. Everybody knows. Even Emma over at Real Life Ghost Stories, which if you are not listening to Emma, I think her name is Emma. Sorry, Emma, if that's not your name. Real Life Ghost Stories, fantastic podcast, but she is always talking about how scary children are, and they are so scary. So you've got a 2-year-old, scary, period, already scary, and then pointing to an empty hallway and going like, there's a lady there. Like, oh no, get out. You're out. Nope. No more talking. Cute little 2-year-old sister. You are no longer allowed to talk. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. So scary toddler. Woof. Nope. Next. Door handle. The door handle turning and opening by itself. Not even just the door handle. Let me rephrase. The bedroom door opening every night at 4 a.m. It's like you replace the door, you replace the locks, the door frame. You did it so well. You did everything right. How do we remove the unexplainable from this situation, which is exactly what ghost hunters do. Ghost hunters are not trying necessarily to prove it is ghosts. They're trying to figure out what it is, which means you first have to remove explained phenomena. Can you explain it? Great. Then it's not a ghost, right? So that's what you were doing. You were using that same logic. Let's change everything that we can around the situation. And if it's still happening, then it is kind of unexplained and also terrifying, and it's your room. Like, talk about psychological safety. There's zero psychological safety when your bedroom door is opening every night at 4 a.m., even if you replace the door and the locks. And then after all of that, you guys see the door handle turn and there's no one there. No, I don't know how you did it. You are a stronger person than I am, probably stronger than most of the people listening. I mean, I know, you don't have a choice, right? Where else are you going to go? Like, you're in school, you can't afford your own place. You just have to kind of put your blinders on and just pretend like it's not happening, which is what you did. So, you had to protect yourself somehow. Okay, next, let's see what's next. Oh my God, your temporary roommate recording that voice, the old man voice, while he was recording. I doubt that audio still exists, but wow, if it does, I would love to share that EVP with everybody. But assuming that it's gone, because I mean, he probably didn't want it. He probably was like, get off of my file. Don't haunt my laptop. Get out. Old man, you're not welcome here. This laptop is clear, is probably what he was going for. So, but if you do find out that you still have it, please send it to me. Also, I did my best to pronounce the Vietnamese phrases and words in this story. I mean, I listened over and over and over to recordings of people pronouncing the words, so I hope that I did them justice, but please forgive me if I either mangled them or turned them somehow into some sort of deeply offensive word by mispronouncing it. So apologies, but tried my best. All right. After the EVP, which is crazy on its own, after the EVP, we have the laughter, the like middle-aged woman just like laughing in the middle of the day and nobody can explain it. And, yeah, I'm with you. It's like, oh, obviously it was just a neighbor, obviously, but like that's a loud neighbor, first of all, like really loud in order to pick that up. And then on top of that being unlikely, no one is around at that time. No one's home. So like who was laughing? Who was phone? That's a reference to an old creepypasta. Would also love that recording if you still have it. I doubt that you do because I think you would have sent it to me. But if anyone's listening and you happen to have a recording of something unexplained, an EVP, or just like voices that you can't explain or sounds, like send it to me with your story and I'll totally play it. You know me, I'll play it. All right, so we had this unexplained loud laughter in the middle of the day with no explanation. I don't love it. But next we have the pale pair of legs you saw that were specifically, I have to call out, specifically wearing booty shorts. Those were just not the words I was expecting to read when I was reading this story. I just did not expect to come across the words like Victoria's Secret booty shorts. It sounds like you could see worse things. It sounds like two presumably like teenaged boys, in a room at night seeing, this just feels like there's worse things that you could have seen. I'm not saying it wasn't scary because it sounded like your roommate that was in there with you was not into it, obviously. But someone would be. People that are seeing like the old crones, or like a Babadook, people that are seeing Babadooks are begging to just see a pair of bare women's legs wearing Victoria's Secret booty shorts. They are like, please send them over here. Y'all can have the Babadook. I will take the booty shorts. Which now has me wondering if you can see legs with booty shorts and then you have other people are seeing a Babadook, can you have a Babadook wearing booty shorts? Let me know your thoughts. Send them to madamestrangeways@gmail.com. Babadook in booty shorts? There's something there, and I'm trying really hard to not fixate on it. Booty, boop. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm going to stop. Okay. So that I understand that your roommate was terrified and you were probably scared. I'm just saying that there could be scarier things. I'm sorry that it scared you though. Okay. Oh, okay. So this is like straight out of The Exorcist. You're asleep and you wake up hearing someone yell your name in your ear, which I have talked about on the show before. That is a form of either exploding head syndrome or an auditory hallucination, specifically hypnagogic or hypnopompic, depending on if you're waking up or falling asleep when you hear the sound. I've heard someone say my name before, like probably some people listening have heard sounds when they're falling asleep or something that wakes them up. It's a known phenomena. It's completely phenomena. Da, 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 da. God, it's annoying. I couldn't let it go. So sorry, but it's a known phenomena. So it's not necessarily always supernatural or unexplained. However, as soon as you get into your like defensive judo stance, like as just a reflex, which is really good reflexes. But as soon as you get into that reflex, the wooden cross hanging on the wall falls onto your face. Like, come on. That, like, the sound alone, hearing someone shout your name alone, or just even whisper, your name alone while you're asleep or in the middle of the night, in the dark, alone, when they shouldn't be doing it, that's already scary enough. And then, no, the cross is knocked off of the wall onto your face. Oh, it's really scary. Really scary. And I love, again, how you're just like, put the cross away and just go back to sleep. Okay, so assuming going back to sleep obviously helped you. All right, what's next? At the family shrine. At the family shrine where you don't even remember. This is crazy. Okay, I know, like, y'all just heard the story, but it's, how Ted is with his family. He's like, I'm gonna go to sleep, I'm tired, and then has full on conversations as though possessed by his great grandfather, like mimicking mannerisms that he probably didn't know, right? and then having no memory of it and then waking up and hearing people tell you that. Like, I mean, that sounds like a nightmare on its own. Just like if you just blacked out drunk and then people are telling you what you did when you were drunk, like that's already not fun and scary, honestly. Scary to not remember it. Ah, that's really, really spooky to not remember things that you've done. And just even if this had nothing to do with the supernatural and it wasn't, presumably your great grandfather speaking through you, even if none of that was like applicable, just whatever would cause you to have conversations with people and not remember any of it. I know it sounds like, oh, it could just be sleepwalking and like sleep talking. Still scary, so like when I give these explanations and say, okay, it's just auditory hallucinations, you're just hearing things, they're still scary, even though you have an explanation for them. So just to be clear, terrifying. All right, so after the possession incident at the shrine, um the hot breath on your ear while you're meditating. At least that time you were like, nope, I'm out. I'm out. Goodbye. We're not doing this. That's good. That's the energy that these other stories would bring out in me. Nope. I will leave now. I will not be in this space until I absolutely have to be again. So I think you said the detail, like you were meditating at 3 a.m. And like I've said before on previous episodes, I know 3 a.m. is typically, known as like the witching hour, or the hour that, the veil between the living world and the world of the dead is thinnest. And so a lot of people say like demons are more active at 3 a.m., ghosts are more active at 3 a.m. And typically what I say is that, well, 3 a.m. is also the time that humans with a normal sleep schedule, normal-ish sleep schedule, 3 a.m. is typically one of the times that you do wake up, most common, completely unrelated to unexplainable events. It can also be something that you experience when you have a lot of stress, which causes a lot of cortisol, and having a lot of cortisol wakes you up, especially around 3 a.m. So that's typically the explanation I give for the things happening at 3 a.m. However, Ted, you were not asleep when this was happening. Maybe, I think you could argue that like while you're meditating, you are kind of falling into a sleep-like state, but even if you were, you wouldn't have been asleep long enough or like gone into REM or out of REM for the normal 3 a.m. wake cycle to apply to you. So I don't like it. I don't like it. Uh, I I just don't. It's a no from me. Meditating at 3 a.m. and having a hot breath on my ear and whispering, nope, no, thank you, no, thank you. Okay, so then we're moving on to this. We're moving on to your sister who saw your dad in the kitchen window at night and saw behind him an older woman. Like, oh, is our aunt over? When did our aunt come over? No, your aunt's not there. It's just your dad and no one else is home. So who did she see? Who did she see behind him? I was halfway expecting the story to say like, and then it turned out that that your aunt had passed away that night, and that was no, just some older scary woman hanging around, lurking behind your dad while he's doing dishes. It's just not helpful. Like, as a ghost, that's just not helpful. I don't know, what are you doing? Like, do the dishes. Why are you standing there watching him like a foreman? Like, do the dishes. Just do the dishes. Chip in. If you're going to be a ghost, you're going to be haunting a house. You need to do something around the house. You need to pitch in. So that's what I say to the old lady that your sister saw in the window, but also so scary. All right, finally, the laptop. How was it playing music? How was it playing music? Because like you said, even if you were sleepwalking, you didn't have access. Like you couldn't get in. Like passwords, whatever. You couldn't get in. Even if you woke up and you slept. Even if you woke up and you were sleepwalking and in your sleep you opened the laptop, you certainly didn't sleep log in. Right? So then how was it playing? It's so scary because then it just feels like, was someone in the house? Like, were they in the apartment that they weren't supposed to be there? You know, like you hear about frogging, which is not like Frogger, the game. It's not like that. It's frogging. P-H-R. I don't know why they spell it this way. P-H-R-O-G. Like a frog with a, like Fish, the band, P-H-I-S-H, but frog. And they're not a band. I'm explaining this terribly, but you've probably heard of it. Frogging is someone basically squatting in your house, but you don't know they're there. So they're living in the attic, or they're living in the walls, or they're just living somewhere in the house where you don't see them. And they, oh my God. I just gave myself a heart attack because the way that I'm recording, I didn't realize how long this episode was. And so typically this, right where I just screamed, is where my outro starts. And so I've got outro music, but I've also got the little, the ding, 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 ding. So that noise just came over my speakers way louder than I expected it to out of the blue. And I was thinking about how scary this would be in the middle of the night. And it just scared the crap out of me. I scared the crap out of myself. So great. Thanks, Ted. That's what all your stories did to me. So thank you. They had me on edge and I got so scared. My heart is racing. Okay, so I don't know how the laptop came on and played music. All right, but I'm too rattled to continue. So you know what? We're going to wrap it up. So if you found yourself at any point in your life living in a haunted apartment, a haunted house, a haunted, I don't know, like a haunted mansion, that is something that's haunted as well. If you lived anywhere and you feel like it was haunted, or you had these kinds of unexplained experiences, if you spent any amount of time and you have a load of like smaller things like this that have happened to you, feel free. Be like Ted. Write them down, email them to me at madamestrangeways@gmail.com, and I would be more than happy. I would be honored even to share them on the show. Thank you so much for joining me for such a lovely spooky time. Remember, you can feel afraid and not be in danger. If you've enjoyed yourself, please follow the podcast so you can get alerts when new episodes come out. And if you've really enjoyed yourself, it would mean a lot to me if you would tell a friend about the podcast and follow me on Instagram at Madame Strangeways, or leave me a rating or review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Or, just send me an email at madamestrangeways@gmail.com to just say hello. I'd appreciate it. Madame Strangeways is produced and narrated by me, Madame Strangeways. Theme music is by Marina Ryan at marinamakes.co. You can submit your own strange story at madamestrangeways.com, or send in your thoughts or theories on the stories in this episode to madamestrangeways@gmail.com. Thank you for listening. Until next time.